Welcome to our video series featuring the PFAFF Creative Icon 2 Sewing and Embroidery Machine. This video will be focusing on tips and hints when using the Creative Grand Dream Hoop, also known as the turnable hoop. Please check out our other videos that are available. Also, don't forget that there are 100 step-by-step tutorials within your Creative Icon 2, and they can be found in the Help Center. So you want to know how to use your Creative Icon 2 with its included hoop, the Creative Grand Dream Hoop? Well, I've got some tips and hints for you. Let's get started. First, you need to know that this hoop has been around for a while, but it's always been an optional hoop. Now it's included with your Creative Icon 2, and you get the best of both worlds. You get all of your standard hoops and this new turnable hoop. So if you haven't used your turnable hoop before, what you need to know is this is unlike any other hoop you've used. This hoop is like a double hoop. It's double wide. And that allows you to design designs that are larger than a standard regular one-sided hoop. Now, the overall dimensions of this hoop are 350 by 360. That roughly translates into 13 3/4 inches by 14 1/8, give or take a few millimeters. But really, it's not one solid area. Your standard hoops that you attach on one side to the embroidery unit and don't have to swing around, they will sew the entire area in one pass, from top to bottom, left to right, or vice versa. But you don't actually have to turn anything around. This hoop, the Creative Grand Dream Hoop, also known as the turnable hoop, needs you to participate. So what you need to know is there are two overlapping areas, a left area and a right area, or a side A and a side B, also known as part 1 and part 2. You'll hear us use those terms interchangeably throughout various lessons we've done over the years. The dimensions of each of these two areas are approximately 190 millimeters wide by 360 millimeters tall, or 7.5 inches by 14 1/8. But the real kicker here is that overlap area. If you're looking at the picture, you will see that area in white. This is where those 290 millimeter wide hooping sections will touch each other and kind of blend into each other. This is where you get to hide when you transition from one part to the second part of the design. And that area is 30 millimeters wide, or just over an inch. To say it another way, as you can see here, all the way on the right, that's the finished design. It looks like one massive, really large embroidery. And once it's unhooped and finished being stitched, it is one really large embroidery. But this is a special design, one that's been created for stitching in this turnable hoop, or your Creative Grand Dream Hoop. You will see that it is actually separated into a part 1, a part 2. All the way on the left, you will see the first part to stitch, which is the right side of this very large hoop. This will completely sew out, and notice none of the design bleeds past that little white strip that highlights the overlap area. That's critical when using this hoop. The second part of the design will be stitched when you turn the hoop 180 degrees, and this part of the design kind of finishes it off. But it is a separate design file, kind of. They will actually come bundled together, but they are two separate entities. And if you've watched the video on how to stitch out built-in designs for your turnable hoop, or pre-existing designs for your turnable hoop, you will notice that I played up left and right and what you do before and after you've turned the hoop. If you haven't watched that video, please make sure you do so. Now, let's continue on this journey and learn a little bit more about what to watch for and how to build designs. So the first thing you need to know about your Creative Grand Dream Hoop is it practically has two of everything. First off, you will notice that there is two sliders on the side. That's where you attach the hoop to your embroidery unit. So you'll have a slider on one side that'll hold it while it's stitching the right part of the hoop, and then when you turn it around, that same slider will be on the opposite side so that you can stitch the second part of the design. It also has 2 tightening screws and 2 quick release levers. And it is important that you use these in tandem. Don't just over tighten the top one and then use the bottom one to make your life easy. It is really important that you equally tighten both of those or loosen both of those for your various projects. If you over tighten one and don't tighten the other, you will have alignment issues with your designs. So please pay attention to making sure that as you hoop your fabric and stabilizer or batting up, that you equally balance the gap that is in between the levers there. And that will come with practice, but definitely something to keep paying attention to. The other parts that you will have are some little clips. Now these little clips will help stabilize your fabric even more snugly or tightly into the hoop as possible. The larger the hoop, the longer the distance of the sides of the hoop, the more likely you will want to use these clips. Of course, they're optional, but trust me, I've learned the hard way. They are definitely important when you have a very stitch intense design. Now this design is not stitch intense, but I did add those little clips so that you could see where they are placed around the hoop. There's 16 of them, I believe, and this will come in your goodies that came with your Creative Icon 2. Look for a bag of hoop clips. Now these take a little practice putting on and off, but as you've hooped your fabric and stabilizer in between the upper and lower part of the hoop, you're then going to snug this over the top hoop and bottom hoop along the sides to just kind of pinch or kind of clamp down and keep it ever so snug along that longer distance of the hoop. The bigger the hoops, the more distance you have to support the fabric around the outer edge. And this is important. Now they do go in one way. Look for an edge that has a little kind of toenail to it, I guess would be a way to describe that. And that will fit in between the little bumpers that are in your hoop, and just practice putting them on and off. They have a little bit of a squeeze mechanism to them to help get them off when you're finished stitching out and they are no longer needed. But they can easily just clamp down and pinch the inner ring to the outer ring and hold your fabric that much more snugly in your hoop. So looking back at this design, since it's the one that we started talking about earlier, you will notice that the left and the right are not identical. Sometimes you will have design elements within a design that will kind of straddle that overlap zone. And if you look closely at the design on the right, it has 3 little flowers. The design on the left only has 1, because as this design was created, the designer put the majority of the design elements, the little embellishments, in that first hooping. And then if the item, in this case the remaining 4th flower, couldn't fit, then it belonged in the second half. And when you look really close at everything, you'll notice that most of these elements are not touching. They're close, they might be really friendly neighbors, but they are not actually coming together and touching. Those are the easiest designs to learn with when you're just getting started using a turnable hoop. So this is one of the ready-made designs available at the My Sewnet library for you to download and use. Another way to look at this, and this happens to be a different design that I have recolored so that you can see the left hooping versus the right hooping, or the 2 parts. Overall, it looks like everything's touching each other, but when you zoom in really, really close, you will see that first flower that's in blue and the kind of the upper middle picture. It is close, but not exactly touching the stem that belonged in the other part of the design. That allows you a little bit of wiggle room. If you don't quite get things lined up as you're stitching part 1 versus part 2, it's no big deal. When all is said and done and your project is unhooped, nobody will know that that gap is a millimeter larger than it needed to be or than it was designed to be. It's not that critical. However, if you look further down in the design, closer to the bottom of the main picture, there's a lot of stitches all coming together. And in that lower right picture, I've zoomed in on that area, and you can see that some of the straight lines from the left part of the design that's in blue, actually come and touch running stitches that are stitched in the first part of the design, or the section on the right. That is where it's going to be critical that if you want those to match up, that you make sure that you have tightened your hoop balanced, both top and bottom, with those levers and the tightening screw, and that you use your precise positioning function in stitch out mode. Okay, when you're in embroidery stitch out mode and you've turned, and before you start stitching that second part of the hooping, you will want to not only check the alignment stitches, but you will want to use steps 3 and 4 in your precise positioning to come to the opposite end of the hoop and check 1 or 2 of those other little locations. Once you know that you've got those lined up, then you're good to continue and finish sewing out the rest of the design, and all of those critical intersections will line up. Now, if you're just getting started, you're probably going to rely on ready-made designs. So where do you get them? Yes, you have, I think it's approximately 10 built into your Creative Icon 2. But what if you want more? Well, you do have, as part of your purchase of a Creative Icon 2, a 90-day trial to the My Sewnet library. That's part of your silver subscription. So you have access to a whole lot more designs available for you to play with. And trust me, there's huge quantities of designs out there that allow you to use your turnable or Creative Grand Dream hoop. When you are navigating the My Sewnet library using either a tablet or your computer, you will have access to a more robust search function that allows you to scan all the 7,000 plus designs that are in the library and look for all of the ones that have been keyworded or categorized as turnable hoop or 360 by 350 embroidery designs. That will shrink your availability down from just randomly finding designs to all the ones that would qualify and are specially designed for use in your Creative Grand Dream hoop. So make sure you get to visit the website, look around, see the designs, and take advantage of having unlimited access to using these additional design files while you've got your trial membership going. Now you can also design inside your Creative Icon 2 or in your embroidery software. You can take a smaller element, make sure you have your Creative Grand Dream hoop selected on the screen, and use the repetition functions like Shape Creator or Encore if you're in the software, and repeat that over and over and over again. Or you can randomly just place designs on the screen. But there's a few key things you need to know to be successful. First off, if you have a design element that straddles or completely covers that overlap area, you've got a problem. But I've got a solution for you. In this case, I've done a circle design with a buttonhole. And I've done it both in the computer software and on my Creative Icon 2. In both cases, that buttonhole just is a little bit too big to go completely across the overlap area. Well, how do you fix that? You simply just rotate the design a bit. Because there was a gap in between the repetitions, all you need to do is twist your project and maybe hoop a little bit crooked, and you will be able to have all of the buttonholes, in this case, or flowers or other design elements that you might be doing this with, can be grouped to belong on either the left side of the hoop or the right side of the hoop, because none of them are holding hands. None of them are overlapping. It's not one big solid design. A simple little twist, and that solves the problem, because your Creative Icon 2 or software will be able to navigate around and stay within the cut zone, the overlap zone, and separate what belongs on each side and group them together. Now, when stitching these designs out, it is, again, important to either have them on the left side or on the right side, and nothing completely overlapping that white zone. But when you enter your embroidery stitch out, you do need to do a few things. One, I would recommend that if you've designed exclusively in your Creative Icon 2, that you make use of the color sort and color merge options so that it will not have as many color changes to it. Okay? The other real critical thing to do to save you energy and, a lot of sitting there and doing things is to make sure you place a check mark in turnable hoop options, side sort. If you do not select side sort and you've just randomly placed things left and right all over the hoop, then your hoop could be needing to be switched from side A to side B to side 1 to side 2, back and forth a number of times during the stitch out process. Trust me, that's a pain in the butt. So you will want to make sure you place a check mark in the turnable hoop option side sort for anything that you've done when you've designed it exclusively on the machine. Now, if, however, you do a lot of designing and you make use of the embroidery software, like our MySewnet software, you will want to benefit from some of the stuff being automatic. Okay? You won't have to really worry about merging or sorting colors, because upon export, the software will take care of that function for you. It will color sort the design. In the case of what belongs on the left side of the screen versus the right side of the screen, or part A in the hoop, part B in the hoop, you will not really have to worry about it. You worry about designing the design. I created one here that said, "I love my Creative Icon 2," and put some little frames around it. And then when I exported it, it saved part 1 and part 2 bundled together so that I could easily transport it to the machine. Now, if you do design something or purchase a design that is very large and completely covers that overlap area, then you will definitely need the software. Now, it can be any of the MySewnet softwares, because we've got 4 different levels. You've got your MySewnet Basic, which is free to everyone. You've got the MySewnet Silver, which you have a trial membership for. And you have access to a couple of additional levels. Please speak to your dealer about your options. But why do you want this? It will allow you to not have to worry about anything. You will be able to design. And then if something is completely covering that overlap area, your software upon export will split the design. You will not have to worry about what goes in A and B, or the fact that it completely overlaps. It will chop through a set of stitches. Now, if you looked at the zoom in area here, and I've recolored one half just so it's easier for you to see, you will notice that part of my design is one color and part of it is another color. It chopped through a design element that went completely across the overlap area. This is only possible when using the computer software. And don't forget, we do make our MySewnet software available for both Mac operating systems as well as Windows operating systems. And your dealers will be happy to answer any questions you have related to what your options are when it comes to the MySewnet software. I hope that you have found this information helpful, and please look for additional tips and hints, documents, or info on the MySewnet website. The library has some dedicated instructions, and I'm sure your dealers are well versed in using your Creative Grand Dream Hoop, and they would be happy to help you if you have any desire to learn more.